Okay, guys, so I watched the live action Lilo and Stitch. Now, here's the thing, I'm gonna say this. I have not seen very many of the Disney live action movies. I know they've been pumping out one after another. I think I've seen Jungle Book. That was, if it was like 10 years ago. Um, I think that might be about it. Besides Lilo and Stitch, I really haven't watched very many of them at all. So I think there's like one or two others, but so I'm not going to be comparing this movie to the rest of them. What I am hearing generally from people who watch it, they are saying that this one is better than the majority of the live action remakes they have done, which seems kind of expected. It's kind of hard to ruin Lilo and Stitch, but people said that about a lot of the other remakes that they've done. So, I think this movie generally was fine. It was enjoyable. There were parts I did like about it. There weren't a lot of negatives. I think the few negatives I had ended up being more impactful than I thought they would be. So, let's sort of talk about the opening. So, obviously, for a live action movie, I don't know what they did with Snow White. I don't know how big of a budget the CGI was for some of the others they've done, but it feels like Stitch definitely got the bulk of the CGI. Most of the budget went to him, and I think that's fine because he is in so much of the movie. I think he needed to look good, and he did. But you have Jumba and Pleakley, who are also they're side characters, but they have a lot of screen time, at least in the original. So for this one, they needed a lot of the budget going toward them. So the fact that they become human, which is used by technology that they use when they get to Earth, it just almost felt lazy from a whoever made that decision. It just felt like a lazy decision not to just make them look the way people remember them. That's the way people remember these characters. And so I'll just start off with the opening. The opening in space when they present Stitch and Jumba saying, is this guy really that terrible? I think that sequence with all of the characters, I think it looked good generally. There really wasn't any complaints I had about the CGI except for Jumba. He just looked off. He just looked like a glob of CGI. He didn't look like the character didn't look like he blended in with the rest of the other aliens, and he sure as heck didn't look like he blended in with the humans. It just looked off. I don't know why. He just looked bad. The CGI looked bad. Pleakley, when he's in the alien form, which isn't very much of the movie at all, I guess he looked fine. He does look goopy, I guess. He just doesn't look like the way you remember him. It just looks like he looks like a slimy, goopy kind of character, and it. Just I don't know. It's just really weird that they chose to design him that way, I guess. So, like I said, after they say, okay, well, Stitch escapes, so Jumbo Pleakley, you guys are going to Earth. When they get to Earth, they use technology to look like humans, and they pretty much stay that way up until like the last 10 minutes of the movie. So that was disappointing. Not only that was disappointing, but Gantu is also dogs are demanding attention. Gantu was also just left out of the movie entirely. So not only the four Gantu, Jumbo, Pleakley, and Stitch, those are what I consider the four main animated characters you have. Gantu is left out completely. Jumbo and Pleakley are human most of the movie. So it just felt like they were just cutting corners as far as the design was concerned. So that I just really didn't care for. I didn't care for the laziness behind it all. Like I said, Stitch was fine, but I don't think sacrificing, I guess, technically three other characters for one, I don't think it was worth it. I would have been fine with 5 minutes less of screen time for Stitch, for Jumbo and Pleakley to get those moments throughout the movie. But it just didn't happen, so when we get to Earth, when the opening space sequence is done, the actresses who played Nani and Lilo, I actually thought they did a really good job. I thought the acting was fine. They had a very good chemistry, this good sisterly bond. I thought they both did a great job. The acting was perfectly fine. I had no issues with them whatsoever. I had issue with some of the writing of one of the characters, but I thought the acting performance was actually really, really cool. So most of the story is the same. Instead of Cobra Bubbles, there's another lady who is a CPS agent, and they spend a lot more time on the CPS saying, hey, Nani, here's some recommendations, here's some pointers, this is what went wrong, this is what could go right. They spent a lot of time on that I think took time away from the other characters and other storylines that I think they could have focused on. But that's just the way it is. So Cobra Bubbles does get involved later on in the movie to get a sample from Stitch to see what he is. He's not CPS at all. CPS is cover. So he shows up. He only has like, I don't know, 20, 30 seconds of screen time with Lilo, and that's really about it. So up until the end, I thought Cobra Bubbles, his role was just felt extremely minimal. But the way the movie ended up, if he were just written out of the movie, it wouldn't have really impacted all that much. Which sounds kind of backwards because he did play a really strong role in the original. So that's sort of, I've covered the opening, I've covered pretty much most of the middle is their relationship with, of course, Lilo finds Stitch, he's the new dog, he's causing mayhem and chaos, causing Nani to lose her job. All of that is pretty much the same. It's the Jumba and Bleakley stuff that just feels very different. So they are still there to try to capture Stitch, but Jumba is kind of an ass. I don't know why. He's just kind of an ass. So he's written to basically be a jerk to Bleakley. He doesn't take him seriously. They're not friends. He's not giving him any wiggle room for any kind of input on the mission whatsoever. And he becomes obnoxious. He's really annoying. The most minimal complaint you can have is he didn't have an accent. And, you know, it sucks, but if the character was written really well and the performance was really good, I could overlook that. But the performance wasn't really all that great, and the character was written poorly, in my opinion. So there really wasn't any positives about Jumbo whatsoever. Not only is he a jerk, but it takes away the impact from the original because he's meant to be a part of the Ohana. He's meant to be a part of the family. He is trying to capture Stitch for a majority of the movie, but he sees that he did make something that can be good. He wanted to create something that can destroy, but he created something that's good. So he sort of sees and recognizes his creation isn't really what he intended, but he comes to appreciate it. And that's how it was in the original, and that's not how it was in this one. In this one, he sees Stitch as just completely flawed. Just completely flawed because he is trying to build a family, and he is hiding, and you know, Jumbo just has nothing good to say about Stitch whatsoever. So as the movie's sort of getting toward its third act, the High Priestess, I think is what she calls, forgive me, I don't remember, the Grand Councilwoman contacts Bleakley and says, you guys are fired, basically. You failed. So instead of sending Gantu or anyone else, she says, I'm sending a team there, which whatever. So at this moment when Jump is fired, he basically tells Bleakley, F off. I'm gonna go do my own thing, screw you, we're done, I don't even like you anyway, I'm gonna go get Stitch my way. So there's just no redeeming qualities about Jumbo whatsoever. And in this third act, this is a different sequence that we sort of don't get in the original. Is Jumbo actually goes to Lilo's house and finds Lilo and Stitch, and he has a little bit of a battle with Stitch, but it's kind of short. It's more just destroying the house. And he ends up taking Stitch, kidnapping Stitch, and Lilo is the one that sneaks on board his ship to try to save Stitch, which is sort of backwards from the original, which I don't think was bad writing. It just felt plot armory because Stitch saving Lilo, Stitch has, you know, he's a lot more capable of doing that than Lilo, especially this version of her character. So it just felt very plot armory for how Lilo was able to help out Stitch, but he does get out of his containment tube, whatever you want to call it, which as Jumba puts him in the tube, he says, you are so flawed, I'm going to use you to create a new version of yourself that's not flawed. Where we get some visual, just the outlines of characters from the series and the sequels. So that was their small cameo in this movie. And sort of as we go into this final act, Stitch, you know, breaks out of the containment tube, he attacks Jumba, and he gets kicked out of the ship. He and Lilo are going down. They're in the ship. It's going down into the water. At this point, David and Nani and Cobra has now caught up to Pleakle and arrested him, but Nani says, wait, we need him. So now these characters are following the ship, and when they get to the water, they save Lilo, and Nani, she reluctantly goes back for Stitch, so I guess she decided he can be Ohana enough, I guess. Which felt very delayed for deciding to save Stitch after Stitch just saved Lilo. So I guess Nani just doesn't really like Stitch all that much, but she ends up saving him. You think he dies. They do this in every Stitch movie, where you think he's dead, but he's not. That sort of thing happens again. He's alive. It's, great happy ending. A Grand Councilwoman shows up, basically says, yep, Stitch can live out a sentence here. They take Jumba away. Pleakley stays. So Jumba's just not Ohana whatsoever. He's just, he was never part of the family. He doesn't matter. So that was very awkward, is just writing him out of the storyline that was the impactful part of the story. So that felt weird. But then, as we sort of move on, CPS basically tells Nani, who's been debating going back to college this whole time because she wants to do what's best for Lilo. In the original movie, Ohana meant family, and that meant no one's left behind. That means you stick together. That means a family stays as a family. But in this movie, that means Nani goes to college. She decides, you know what? Lilo can just go to the system and, whatever happens to her, whatever happens to her. Now, the CPS lady did say, well, actually, because David, and I assume what this lady who's been a recurring character in the movie is David's mother, who has a good relationship with all the characters, happens to be neighbors and live right next door. So Lilo's staying with her and David. So she does get a good home. She gets to keep Stitch. She gets to stay super close to home. She's still in the same neighborhood and city, so she can do her hula class and have her same friends and go to the same school and all of that. But Nani didn't know that before she said, yep, I'm giving up Lilo. So, and this is also the second time in the movie that she's given up Lilo. So Ohana just felt like a term from a bygone era in this movie. It didn't really mean anything at all in this movie. Nani doesn't consider Lilo Ohana. She reluctantly decided Stitch can be Ohana enough. Jumba wasn't Ohana. It just felt like it went against a lot of the themes that the original movie had. So, overall, I think this movie was enjoyable because the actors that played Nani and Lilo, I think they both did really well. I think the relationship between Lilo and Stitch was done really well. So those concepts incorporated were actually pretty good. I just think all of the small pieces of the story that they decided to either write out or leave behind or change, I think those changes they should have just kept those things the way they were in the original, and this would have been, I think, a much better movie. So overall, it was fine. Like I said, my few complaints aren't that many. They just happen to be impactful complaints when you compare it to the rest of the movie. So, see it for yourself. Tell me what you think. Maybe you found more positives than I did. Maybe you found less negatives than I did. So let me know in the comments. I really want to hear more people talk about this movie because I'm not hearing a lot of what they're saying. I'm just hearing that it's making a lot of money. So, thanks for watching my review, guys. Keep it digging. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.